Imagine you're sitting around the Fligus table with your friends, spending your hard-earned money on Dragonstorm collector boosters. You're cracking them, laughing, crying, having a good time, not legally technically gambling. Next to you, your friend lifts a Halo foil. In a shaking hand, he shows you his Ugin Eye of the Storm, one of the fanciest chase cards of the set. With trembling hands, you look down at your own Halo foil and see WotC's apology for Siege Rhino. Skirmish Rhino is a 3-mana, 3-color, 3/4 for white, black, green, with trample, and when it enters, drain each opponent for 2 life. Sorry, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. And it's bad. And just to be clear, that is on purpose. Skirmish Rhino is a direct and intentional callback to the menace of standard Siege Rhino. And if you don't know about that card, I implore you to go and watch Rhystic Study's excellent video on the subject.
As long as you leave a like and subscribe before you click off the video.
And the things that make Skirmish Rhino not nearly as good as its ancestor are many and varied, almost as complicated as the factors that made Siege Rhino fantastic in the first place. First and foremost is that Magic has no such equivalency where smaller and cheaper is equal to larger and bigger. At different mana values, different things are good, different things are possible. One of the excellent things about Siege Rhino is that as a 4-mana 3-color card, it's relatively simple to accelerate out a turn early playing it on turn 3. Skirmish Rhino, on the other hand, is absolutely never going to be played on turn 2, because the only places that you would reasonably be doing that are places where you're playing, say, a Birds of Paradise. And if you're playing in a format that has Birds of Paradise, you're playing in a format that has Siege Rhino, the objectively superior card. And lest you, my dear viewer, think that I am simply talking out of my ass here, the reality of the difference between Siege and Skirmish Rhino is real math. Just to reliably cast Siege Rhino on turn 3 in a standard deck, you need 13 sources of each color. And all 24 of your 24 lands need to produce at least one of those colors. That is not a lot of wiggle room. And more importantly, if the format that this card has been printed into lacks, say, for instance, half of the shock lands, it might be a mana base that is nearly impossible to produce. Siege Rhino, on the other hand, while costing 1 more, that one being generic, reduces the color commitment to a mere 11 of each color, which reduces the requirements below the important breakpoint of 3 playsets and allows you the kind of wiggle room to make the card actually playable in a non-hyper-optimized format. So of course you see where the problem might arise in that the original Siege Rhino was printed into a hyper-optimized format. The stat difference is also extremely relevant. Now, I don't doubt that at some point Siege Rhino was in the file. I mean, look at the Halo foil sheet. That is a whole bunch of rares and mythic rares, and there's even Craterhoof Behemoth on it to rule out the idea of this as a no reprints sheet. And the horrifying thought of maybe standard can actually handle Siege Rhino is an easy trap to fall into. I mean, Witch Stalker Frenzy is still a mainstay in red decks, having just got done efficiently taking out Shieldred, another 4-mana 4/5 that drains you a bunch and stabilizes you on the board. But quite importantly, even at 1 mana, trading 1 for 1 for a Siege Rhino is never a thing that you want to do, because unlike Shieldred, you always have the second Siege Rhino. Skirmish Rhino obviously dies to all of the same removal that Siege Rhino does, but more importantly, provides 25% less threat to the face in terms of just attacking ability, shocks the opponent instead of lightning bolting them, and you can ask any burn player about the difference between those cards, and most critically, Skirmish Rhino doesn't get over, or even trade in some cases, with some of the best creatures in that mana slot already seeing play. There is a reason that nobody is using Skirmish Rhino to replace their Preacher of the Schism, and it's because Preacher of the Schism eats Skirmish Rhino. In an alternate timeline, Siege Rhino might have been bouncing off Shiko Paragon of the Way Jeskai decks, and we might have had Jeskai mid-range versus Abzan mid-range, and been stuck in some kind of good stuff hell standard. Can't imagine what being stuck in some kind of horrible hell standard must be like. This is being recorded on the 3rd, and I really hope that Vivi got banned 2 days ago. But instead, Siege Rhino was ripped from the file at the last minute, because honestly, as a theory for what actually happened, that makes way more sense. To explain the baffling placement of an uncommon on the Halo foil sheet, as opposed to just WotC R&D genuinely thinking Skirmish Rhino was going to be a good card.